Mo Salah's next club is about to shock the entire football world. So where exactly will the Egyptian king end up next? Chelsea have found their replacement for Liam Rosenior, and the question now is who's set to take the reins at Stamford Bridge. Manchester United are unleashing an absolute transfer blitz, with the club going on the hunt for several top targets all at once. Plus, a brand new superstar is heading to Arsenal in North London. All this and much more in today's episode. Let's try to hit 300 likes on this video, and we'll be back tomorrow with more transfer madness. Hit that like button, and let's dive in. Chelsea's bosses love to talk about long-term planning, but if we are speaking frankly, those two words have basically been an oxymoron at Stamford Bridge for years. According to Team Talk, the club are already lining up a potential replacement for Liam Rosenior, and the name on their list is Cesc Fabregas. Now officially, Rosenior has the full backing of the hierarchy. He was brought in back in January, given a deal running all the way to 2032, and told to steady the ship through a rough patch. The board keeps saying the club needs stability. On the surface, it all sounds great, but we all know how Chelsea work, don't we? You can have a 6-year contract today and be clearing out your desk tomorrow. Behind all that public support, there is a brutal ultimatum lurking. If Chelsea miss out on Champions League football for the 26-27 campaign, that long-term deal gets ripped up and thrown in the bin. And the way results have been swinging this season, that Champions League spot is anything but guaranteed. So enter Cesc Fabregas. The Spaniard has been quietly doing brilliant work at Como, completely away from the media circus. He got them out of Serie B and pushed them right up towards Champions League contention, all in the space of 2 seasons, which is genuinely impressive. He plays progressive, possession-heavy football, he develops young players, and he is obsessed with keeping the ball. That sounds tailor-made for the identity Chelsea have been desperately trying to build. And there is the emotional angle too, because Fabregas is one of their own. One insider put it perfectly, saying he is a rare blend of Chelsea DNA and cutting-edge coaching ideas. So you would think it is simple, right? Move Rosenior on, bring Fabregas in, but there is a massive problem, because Chelsea aren't the only club watching him. Manchester City are seriously considering Fabregas as a potential successor to Pep Guardiola, if and when the Catalan decides to call it a day in England. Wrap your head around that for a second. A manager with barely any top-flight experience is already on the radar of the most dominant force in the Premier League. For Chelsea, this changes the entire equation. If they drag their feet with Rosenior for too long, City could just swoop in and hijack the deal before it even gets started. But then you have to ask, why would Fabregas himself jump into the Chelsea pressure cooker? Coming back to Stamford Bridge is a lovely story, but it is also a massive risk to his reputation at this early stage of his career. Managing a tidy project in Italy is one thing. Dealing with the insane expectations and a bloated squad in London is completely different. Whether he's got the experience to survive that kind of environment, truthfully, nobody really knows yet. Right now, everyone is just sitting tight. Rosenior is trying to rescue the end of the season, and Fabregas is getting on with things at Como. If I were in Chelsea's position, I would be very careful here. Having a plan B shows you are growing up as a club, but panicking and blowing up your own project just because you are scared City might nick your target, that is a classic trap. We will see if the Blues have the patience to avoid stepping right into it. CASEMIRO is packing his bags, and the writing has been on the wall for months now. Back in January, the Brazilian made it absolutely clear that he would be leaving the Premier League come June, after Manchester United decided not to activate the extra year on his contract. And with that door closing, the classic path for big-name veterans has swung wide open. The Athletic are reporting that Inter Miami and LA Galaxy have both already confirmed their interest in bringing CASEMIRO in as a free agent this summer. And when you assess the situation, it all adds up perfectly. Both clubs are in desperate need of a quality defensive midfielder right now. Galaxy have been all over the place in the middle of the park ever since Riqui Puig went down with his second cruciate ligament injury in just 2 years. That setback has left them seriously short. Miami, for their part, have never properly replaced Sergio Busquets after he hung up his boots, leaving a glaring gap in that squad. CASEMIRO, then, looks like the ideal fix for both sides, but there is a major obstacle standing in the way, and it revolves entirely around red tape. The MLS system of salary limits could easily scupper this whole thing. Neither Miami nor Galaxy have a spare designated player slot to offer him. The Herons have their 3 elite spots completely sewn up with long-term contracts for Lionel Messi, Rodrigo de Paul, and German Berterame. And over at Galaxy, their DP slot will not free up until 27, so that avenue is closed as well. Can either club somehow bend their own rules to make it happen? Probably not, frankly. And that means CASEMIRO would have to take a massive wage cut just to squeeze under the MLS salary cap. The question is whether the Brazilian is genuinely prepared to give up millions when he simply does not have to. Right now, he is focused elsewhere. He wants to see out his 4 years in Manchester the right way, helping the club fight their way into the Champions League. Once the summer arrives, that is when the real haggling with the American bean counters will begin. Mohamed Salah is officially done with Liverpool, and he is making sure the whole world hears about it. Cast your mind back to September 2025, when Liverpool proudly turned their noses up at £150 million from Saudi Arabia. The board were playing the loyalty card, acting like they would never let their main man leave. And what has actually happened? The Reds are letting their single most important asset walk out the door for absolutely free. Fabrizio Romano has already confirmed it. The Egyptian is leaving as a free agent. They gambled, they held on too long, they refused to cash in at the right moment, and now they have been left with nothing to show for it. Naturally, the second the word free hit the headlines, the Middle East went into overdrive. ESPN are reporting that Al Ittihad have already ramped up their efforts to land Salah. The Jeddah club are dreaming of making him the new face of their ambitious project, and the timing makes total sense. They desperately need a superstar to replace Karim Benzema, who packed his bags and moved to Al Hilal back in February. And now a 33-year-old Salah drops right into their lap. For Al Ittihad, this is not just about signing a brilliant winger, this is about global status. Salah is the most influential Arab and Muslim athlete on the planet. Landing him would buy the club absolute loyalty across the entire region, turning them into a worldwide brand in one stroke. But the funny part of all this is who is actually competing for his signature. The usual Saudi big spenders, Al Nasser, Al Ahly, Al Hilal, are not even in the race at this point. The surprise contender is Al Qadisiyah. Local sources are saying that right now, they are the only club with the real financial muscle to match Salah's eye-watering wage demands. So, we have got ourselves a proper auction here. Whoever stacks the most zeros on the contract is the one who takes the icon home. Now, luckily for me, my demands are a fair bit more modest than the Egyptians, and I do not need Saudi millions, even though I would not exactly turn them down. All I need is your likes. And I am looking specifically at the premium viewers out there, the ones who have whacked this video up on the big plasma and absolutely refuse to press anything. You lot on the sofas, stop staring at the screen like it owes you money. Dig that remote out from under the blanket and smash a like for me. It costs you nothing, but it does wonders for my ego. Now, Salah's farewell to English football could have been so much classier than this. Since joining from Roma in 2017, the man has banged in 255 goals, won 8 major trophies, and written his name into the history of the game. But this fairy tale ending has been completely ruined by a nasty public fallout. Salah's form took a proper nosedive towards the end of 2025. He got dropped to the bench for 3 matches, and then he came out swinging with a fiery interview. He accused the club of using him as a scapegoat while the team's results were falling apart around them. It is the classic football script. When a squad is sinking, yesterday's heroes start looking for scapegoats, and they completely forget to look in the mirror. All that built-up ego just came flooding out at once. So now the Merseyside board are left without a single penny from the transfer, and Salah is slamming the Anfield door behind him as he heads for the exit. The big question is whether he can genuinely carry a Saudi Pro League side to glory, or whether he is just heading off to pick up the paychecks, live off past achievements, and point the finger at his teammates the first time something goes wrong. The Ineos hierarchy are ripping up the midfield at Old Trafford, and this time, it is not just talk. The whole thing starts with CASEMIRO, because his exit is now looking unavoidable. That leaves a gaping hole right in the heart of the squad, not just in quality, but in leadership and mentality as well. And the clear-out does not stop there, because Manuel Ugarte is also expected to be on his way out. When you look at the sheer scale of these exits, it is pretty clear that United need to rebuild the engine room from the ground up. The club already has a shortlist doing the rounds. We are hearing names like Elliot Anderson, Adam Wharton, Carlos Baleba, and Sandro Tonali. These are completely different types of players, which tells you the board are still trying to figure out exactly what they want this midfield to look like. But through all that noise, one name keeps rising to the top, and that is Orkun Kökçü. He is 25, he has got serious pedigree, and he is playing at a genuinely elite level right now. Since going back to Turkey, he has been brilliant for Besiktas, racking up 32 appearances, 7 goals, and 8 assists. Those numbers are impressive, but what really catches United's eye is something deeper. They are not just after talent, they want someone with backbone. Kökçü picked up the captain's armband almost straight after signing for Besiktas. United are starving for players who can set the standard in the dressing room. Besiktas have got him under contract until 2030, and they have already slapped a starting price of at least €50 million on him. Is that going to put the Red Devils off? with their kind of resources. Not even close to being a problem. But the bigger issue is how you actually fit him into this team. Swapping CASEMIRO for Kukçu means ditching the classic defensive anchor and going with a much more fluid front-foot midfield. Losing CASEMIRO means losing that quiet control of the tempo, the kind of thing that loads of sofa pundits never even noticed. Getting that balance right is going to be delicate work, and that brings us to the manager. Michael Carrick is the current favorite for the permanent job, so it makes total sense that the midfield is being built around his vision. Kukçu's expansive style slots nicely into that kind of philosophy. However, he is absolutely going to need proper cover behind him, because without it, the holding zone turns into a revolving door. United have historically been a shambles in the transfer market, just hoovering up big names without any real plan behind it. But this time, it genuinely feels different. The idea is to pair Kukçu's creativity with someone who has already been through the grind of the Premier League, like Tonali or Anderson. If they get that blend right, it could give this new-look United everything they have been missing: stability, tactical flexibility, and real control over the game. Staying with the rebuild at Old Trafford, the Red Devils are back on the prowl in the transfer market, and they have gone absolutely enormous with their next target. Football Espana are reporting that United are prepared to splash up to 100 million euros on Fermín López from Barcelona. Your first question is probably the same as mine. Why on earth is the Ineos board rating Catalonia for a creative midfielder when they have got problems scattered across the entire pitch? Have they completely lost the plot on priorities? Well, not exactly. The logic actually makes sense. United are screaming for fresh legs, technical ability, and raw energy in the middle of the park, and Lopez delivers all of that right now. Even after Dani Olmo rocked up in 2024, it was Fermín who gradually nailed down a regular starting spot. Hansi Flick backs him fully, and the lad genuinely drives the team forward under serious pressure. That is exactly the kind of profile this squad is missing. Let's not get carried away here, though. 100 million euros sounds like the kind of money that would make any club sit up and listen, but the reality of this deal is far more complicated. This transfer is pretty much a fantasy at this point. Lopez just signed a fresh contract running all the way to 2031. Trying to prize a player away with that kind of security is nearly impossible. Neither the player nor Barcelona have any interest in shaking hands with the Old Trafford hierarchy right now. There is a sneaky financial angle to this, though, and it is worth paying attention to. For the first time in 4 long years, Barcelona are finally on the verge of fitting within La Liga's brutal salary cap. That frees up Deco, their sporting director, to operate with a lot more room. The number 10 role is probably the one position where Barca have genuine depth in their squad. It is not completely mad to think the board might consider a strategic sale from that area of the pitch if they need fresh funds to balance the books. But letting Fermín López go, right now, in this window, that feels incredibly unlikely. So what is this 100 million story really about? For Manchester United, it looks a lot more like a big, loud signal to the rest of football, a way of saying they are still in the game and ready to compete for top-tier talent. Sure, that kind of bid would definitely test Barcelona's nerve. Right now, though, it is just a shiny price tag sitting on a door that is bolted shut. For United fans, this is a reason to feel a little bit of cautious optimism about where the club is heading. The big takeaway is this: smart execution in the transfer market always matters more than bold fantasies with a lot of zeros on the end. Tottenham have well and truly played themselves into trouble. The threat of relegation from the Premier League is not some dark fantasy anymore. It is staring them right in the face. And while the club desperately tries to keep their heads above water to avoid dropping into the Championship, their captain seems to have his gaze fixed somewhere warmer, specifically in Spain. CRISTIAN Romero, or Cutie as everyone calls him, loves having a pop at the board for their lack of ambition. The irony is thick, though, because it looks like the man himself has been sitting on packed suitcases for months. Last summer, the Argentine penned a new deal with Spurs running until 2029. Sounds like a proper pledge of loyalty, right? Well, not exactly. Marca have dug up an absolutely brilliant detail hidden inside that contract. Romero negotiated a personal release clause, fixed at 60 million euros, and it only applies to one club: Atletico Madrid. The backstory makes it even juicier. Before that contract was signed, Atleti had flat out refused to pay the 55 million that Tottenham were demanding for the transfer. Cutie basically rolled out the red carpet for Simeone's lot, giving the Rojiblancos a golden ticket to buy him at a set price whenever they fancy it. So, could the captain abandon a sinking ship this summer? Yes, and the bosses at Spurs are not exactly standing in his way. The club's hierarchy are reportedly warming to the idea of offloading this Argentine asset while his value is still high. It does not matter whether the Lily-Whites stay up or go down. Fabrizio Romano says the phones in the Tottenham offices are already ringing off the hook. It is not just Atletico in the mix either. as Real Madrid are keeping a close eye on things too. Los Blancos could not care less about Romero's constant winking in Atleti's direction. They just need a quality center back, and they need one fast. Now, Cutie loves a good interview where he drops hints about how the squad has been gutted by injuries and how the board completely bottled the January window. Fair play, that sounds like a captain holding people accountable, but let's examine what actually happens on the grass. Has Romero been the man dragging this team off the bottom through sheer leadership and defensive dominance? Not even close. What we have seen instead is a stream of disciplinary problems, points thrown away because of needless suspensions, and a defender who keeps going missing exactly when the backline is falling apart. Selling a World Cup winner might sound dramatic. For Tottenham right now, however, it is not a loss at all. It is a lifeline. The club pockets vital millions for a proper rebuild, and Romero finally gets his dream move to La Liga. His head has been checked out of North London for a while now. A clean break at the end of the season is genuinely the best result for everyone involved. Arsenal have set their sights on a transfer that, just a few months ago, would have sounded completely unreal. The Independent are reporting that Kvicha Kvaratskhelia is now Mikel Arteta's top target for next summer, and the Gunners are gearing up for a major overhaul of their attack. The 25-year-old Georgian winger is being viewed as the missing piece, the one player who could genuinely push Arsenal into that next tier. It is a bold move, no doubt about it. But let's break down the reality of it and see how feasible this actually is. This deal looks seriously tough to pull off, and there are two big reasons for that. The first one is PSG, because they are absolutely not interested in selling. Kvaratskhelia only joined from Napoli at the start of 2025. Luis Enrique has built his attack around him, and the French clubs see him as completely off the market. The player himself keeps saying he is happy in France, and everything looks settled on the surface. His agents, interestingly enough, are putting out feelers and signaling that they would be open to hearing other options. Is that a genuine willingness to move? Or is it a classic agent play to push for a bigger contract in Paris? Almost certainly the latter. The second problem is all about money, specifically Arsenal's money. Everyone knows the Gunners are lacking better quality on the flanks. They have already spent big on Eberechi, Eze, and Noni Madueke, but so far, neither of them has truly stepped up to the level that Arteta's title ambitions demand. A bit like the huge number of people who tune in to every single video on this channel, but still have not subscribed. Genuinely, the numbers show a massive chunk of you watching regularly without hitting that button. So do me a favor, sort it out now, and save me from having to scout new viewers in the transfer window. What Arsenal really need is a star, a proper catalyst. Bringing Kvaratskhelia to the Emirates means playing by the Premier League's new squad cost ratio rules, and that makes everything much more complicated. In simple terms, to fit a transfer of this size into their budget, Arsenal would need to launch a massive clear-out. They have to sell first-team players, slash the wage bill, and free up space to afford an elite-level contract. The big question is whether the club is actually willing to go through all of that for one signing. Right now, Arsenal are balancing on a knife edge between chasing major silverware and staying within the bounds of financial fair play. Getting PSG to let Kvaratskhelia go will be incredibly difficult. The fact that Arsenal are even chasing a name this big tells you everything you need to know. They are done with half measures, and they are planning to shock the market with a record-breaking deal.